Ever wondered why we need laws and regulations in our society? Well, they're a little like the rules of a game, maintaining order and ensuring fair play. But they go beyond that, acting as a bulwark against illicit activities that threaten our peace and security. One such activity is money laundering, a sophisticated crime that involves making illegally gained proceeds appear legal. Another is terrorism financing, the act of providing funds for terrorist activity. These are serious crimes with far-reaching consequences, and it's laws and regulations that stand in the way of those who would engage in them. They define the rules of financial conduct, set penalties for transgressions, and give power to the authorities to enforce them. In essence, laws and regulations are our first line of defense against such threats. Without these laws, the world would be a playground for financiers of terrorism and money launderers. The United Kingdom has a robust legal framework to combat money laundering and terrorism financing. In this landscape of financial integrity, three primary laws stand out as the pillars of the UK's fight against these crimes. The Proceeds of Crime Act 2002, or POA as it's commonly known, the Terrorism Act 2000, and the Money Laundering, Terrorist Financing and Transfer of Funds, Information on the Payer, Regulations 2017. Let's kick off with the Proceeds of Crime Act. This act is the bedrock of the UK's anti-money laundering legislation. It provides a comprehensive system for dealing with money laundering offenses, including the recovery of proceeds from crime. In simpler terms, the POCA allows authorities to seize, freeze, and recover the profits of crime. Next, we have the Terrorism Act 2000, a law that specifically targets terrorism financing. This act makes it a crime to raise, possess, or use funds with the intention or knowledge that they would be used for the purposes of terrorism. So if you're found guilty under this act, you're looking at a maximum sentence of 14 years in prison. Last but not least, we have the Money Laundering, Terrorist Financing, and Transfer of Funds, Information on the Payer, Regulations 2017. Quite a mouthful, isn't it? This regulation came into force to implement the European Union's fourth money laundering directive into UK law. It requires firms to conduct due diligence checks on their customers to ensure they're not involved in any money laundering or terrorist financing activities. And yes, there are hefty penalties for non-compliance. These laws provide a solid framework for the UK to detect, disrupt, and deter money laundering and terrorism financing. They not only target those directly involved in these crimes, but also put a system in place to prevent the misuse of the financial system. These laws provide the backbone for the UK's fight against these serious criminal activities. Each law plays a unique role in the UK's legal framework. Let's delve into the specifics. The Proceeds of Crime Act, or POCA, serves to criminalize the laundering of proceeds from any crime, making it illegal to handle ill-gotten gains. Then we have the Terrorism Act, which specifically targets the financing of terrorism, criminalizing any financial support given to these illicit activities. Now let's turn to the Money Laundering, Terrorist Financing and Transfer of Funds Regulations of 2017. This regulation outlines the compliance and reporting obligations for certain businesses. It ensures that these entities have robust systems in place to identify, assess, manage, and mitigate their risk exposure to money laundering and terrorist financing. This includes customer due diligence measures and reporting of suspicious activities. Together, these laws form a comprehensive framework for preventing money laundering and terrorism financing. They act as a sturdy shield, protecting the integrity of the UK's financial system and society at large. But what exactly constitutes money laundering and terrorism financing? To put it simply, money laundering is the act of making illicitly obtained money appear legitimate by disguising its original source. On the other hand, terrorism financing refers to the process of providing financial support to terrorist activities, knowingly or unknowingly. It's not always about suitcases full of cash. It can be as simple as a wire transfer or a charitable donation. Understanding these elements is crucial to preventing these crimes. Let's recap what we've learned today. The importance of laws and regulations cannot be overstated, particularly those governing money laundering and terrorism financing in the UK. These regulations, including the Proceeds of Crime Act and the Terrorism Act, serve to detect and disrupt financial crimes. The key elements of these crimes involve the process of placement, layering, and integration. Remember, understanding and adhering to these laws is everyone's responsibility, not just those in the legal profession.